Welcome back. Now, the Confederation of Oil and Gas Communities of Nigeria and host communities of Nigeria producing oil and gas are asking security agencies to investigate the actions of one of its own for alleged plans to disrupt the smooth running of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021.
They believe this action could cause unrest in the oil industry as well as the entire Niger Delta region.
The Niger Delta region has suffered decades of environmental pollution. It remains one of the most polluted places on earth due to oil spills that affect the air, land, water and marine life. Today, this group is not only concerned about the ongoing pollution, but also it is raising its voice over plans to disrupt the smooth implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act as it seeks an urgent intervention from security agencies.
The PIA said it is the host communities that will choose their own fund manager. The host community never choose NUPRC. Therefore, why accuse NUPRC? It's like giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it.
We have water, we cannot drink the water. We cannot farm in the Niger Delta, in our waters and so forth and so on. So I think it is a high time that the government of our respected President Tinubu should look into this issue of the pollution in the Niger Delta, the gas flare in the Niger Delta, so the ecosystem in the Niger Delta, agitation for 30% reservation to be given to the host community.
For years, federal agencies continue to lead regulations and reconciliations between oil companies and host communities, which have constantly remained divided over sharing formulas and compensations. They suggest that oil companies, host communities and federal agencies work together to ensure that the aspects of pollution are addressed.
I think that the first thing is the law. The PIA law has passed into law 2021 to date have not been implemented.
This group still believes that efforts to clean up the challenges of pollution within the region is long overdue.
And let us take some news that made headlines during the week. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has sent out his congratulations to the former coordinating minister for the economy and Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, on her unanimous re-election as the Director General of the World Trade Organization.
And President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his administration commitment to prioritizing education for Nigerian children. In a dialogue with French President Emmanuel Macron at the Palais de Selassie, he outlined plans to significantly reduce the number of out-of-school children through innovative return-to-class initiatives and skills development programs.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited said the old Port Harcourt refinery is currently operating at 70% of its installed capacity, with plans to ramp up to 90%, and MPC Limited made this known in a reaction to claims suggesting that the refinery is not producing products up to 60,000 barrels per day.
And former Governor Yahaya Bello will remain in custody for 2 weeks to await the decision of the Federal High Court territory in Abuja on his bail application. The trial judge, Marian Anini, ordered the remand of the former governor in custody of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission till 10th December, set for ruling on his bail application.
In business, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, Hasfat Bakari, has disclosed that Nigeria is now compliant with 37 out of the 40 Financial Action Task Force recommendations, saying that Nigeria has made significant progress in its fight against money laundering and terrorist financing, achieving upgrades in 5 key recommendations from FATF.
And from the foreign scene, Georgia's government said it will enter into talks on joining the European Union for 4 years, in a move that drew condemnation from the president and deepened questions over the future path of the Black Sea nation. Georgia applied to join the EU in 2022 along with Ukraine and Moldova, but the bloc never formally agreed to open the years-long process of negotiating membership.
Russia conducted a massive attack against Ukraine's energy infrastructure on Thursday, firing nearly 200 missiles and drones and leaving more than 1 million households without power adding fears that the Kremlin aims to cripple the country's power generation capacity before winter, a Ukrainian official said.
Interesting. And let's move to our next story now. November 25th marks the beginning of a critical 16-day campaign against gender-based violence worldwide. And in Nigeria, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin, says the National Assembly will actively contribute in the development of the next National Action Plan on violence against women.
The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has also assured women that all cases of gender-based violence will be prosecuted.
In a bold move to combat gender-based violence, Nigeria's House of Representatives has officially flagged off 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Approximately 736 million women, representing 1 in 3, have experienced physical or sexual intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both, at least once in their lifetime. The Speaker of the House of Representatives and the senior principal officers are at the front line of this campaign. The solidarity walk was from the National Assembly complex to the main entrance.
National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, will play an active role in the next National Action Plan against women violence that will be coming up very soon.
It's high time we start to take the documentation of all the violence that we have had in the past.
The Office of Ministry of Youth will be coming up with an help desk whereby all the youth in this country, most especially the women and the girls, can communicate with us.
This is part of a wider global effort to address gender-based violence, which is one of the world's most persistent human rights violations.
The police should increase the number of gender desks in police stations across the country to provide a safe and supportive environment for survivors of gender-based violence.
We're using this as a rallying call to everyone to continually do something, say something where you see something, provide support to survivors.
On arrival at the police headquarters, a petition for a call to action is submitted to the Inspector General of Police.
When we have issues of gender-based violence at the police stations, we want to get justice.
The Inspector General of Police also agrees with the call to action. He says eradicating violence against women and children is a collective obligation.
We must all come together and put our actions together to eradicate this unacceptable reality in our communities.
This annual call to action, which runs until December 10th, amplifies the voices of women and girls demanding a world free from violence and abuse.
And joining us is the founder and portfolio director of Shades of Us, Ramatu Ada Ocheke.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. I hope I just...
You did well. You did well. Thank you. All
right, let's talk briefly about this year's theme and what the focus is for global advocacy awareness for 16 days activism of gender-based violence.
Yeah, I'm really happy about the theme this year. It's a requirement that we should have no excuse for gender-based violence, and you can spread it out to a lot of things. No excuse for intimate partner violence, no excuse for mental abuse, no excuse for child marriage. We can go on and just pick the thing that we want to talk about and then promote it using no excuse. And we're really glad that we're talking about this. There's always this misconception that people believe that gender is just about women. Gender is anyone. It's if there is a discrimination against that person based on their gender. You seem to disagree at that moment. But yes, I'm really glad for the theme. It's no excuse at all in our bid to end all forms of sexual and gender-based violence.
All right, so Ada, I mean, every year we start on the 21st of November. We start the 16 days of activism against the GVB. And do you feel like after this event, the 16 days of activism, we actually have demonstrates committed actions to end gender-based violence?
Yes, I do. It's not moving as quickly as we want it to, but it is moving regardless. I like to say this started in 1991, right? And in 1991, there were rights that, for example, women didn't have. There were conversations we didn't have about men and how they may face abuse. But today, it's very regular, it's normal to hear those conversations happening now. Today, it's very normal to hear that there are convictions against rape. It's normal also to hear that, spousal rape is wrong. It wouldn't have happened in 1991. So sometimes it does feel like it might not be giving us the change we want to see as quickly as we want to see it. But I always say that if we have moved one step forward, we are better than we were yesterday, and that step is happening every day. So yes, we are seeing more legislation, more participation of women in governance, more participation of women in the economy as a whole, more convictions against rape and domestic violence, and it's not on the grand scale where it should be, but it is happening now. We're also seeing situations where men are saying, okay, I also have emotions. I am also being abused because of what is happening, because of the fact that I'm a man. And we see every day that these things are changing. Again, at a snail's pace, but it is changing regardless.
I like the fact that you put that
snail pace.
Yeah, that caveat.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's that caveat. So if you look at it, I think it's only, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Lagos and River State has the sex registered offender.
Register?
Yes, the offender register. I don't know of any other state who has it. But if you look at it, the progress that we have made, have we actually been able to address the root cause of sexual-based violence? I had a guest last week, and we spoke extensively on some of the things that happened during this period, and one of the things that I spoke about was the fact that if, for example, you have a man who sexually harassed or sexually abused a lady, and let's say a boy sexually abused a young girl, you are focusing on the girl and not focusing on the boy, forgetting that that boy and that girl will grow up together, while you have mentally, that lady is mentally aware. The boy in question is not mentally aware. So how do we balance these things to make sure we have a sane environment?
Okay, so if you had asked me this question, say 5 years ago, I might have a slightly different answer. But I think women have put the work to improve the lives of girls. And yes, you're right. We must grow together as a society. We must teach men and girls and boys and women the exact things that we need. But women have done the work to try to bring girls, again, because of, in your point, the root cause. The idea that women were not considered full human beings themselves outside of their relationship to men. So when we decided, okay, let's put the work, let's ensure that we see human beings first, male or female. Once we have that idea that these are people first, and then we are able to give them the same access to opportunities, then we can improve together as a nation. So the reason that we see more women pushing for women to be part of society is because we have seen that men have advanced. If you want to look at the educational indices, there were times when women could not go to school. I said there were times because I could go to school, but till today there are communities where women are not allowed to go to school. And so a lot of work has been done to ensure that we even bridge that gap that has already existed, so that we are seemingly on the same path. And it is not trying to push or trying to make society unfit, or that you're making girls understand they're mentally aware and men are not. It's trying to even bridge the gap that has already existed, so that when we even come to the same plane where men and women are going to school at the same time, they're understanding things at the same time, then we can now even begin to talk about, okay, why should we treat each other as human beings first and then respect each other as a result of that? So yes, we need to educate boys, but men need to educate boys, as a lot of women have taken the time to educate girls. In the past, I used to say, oh yes, we are taking our time, but like I said, women have done the work to bring girls because of the inequalities that we have seen in our world. So let us do it together. Let us not expect that it's women's role to educate men. It should be men and women's role to educate the young people in society for a better Nigeria for all of us.
All right, so but when you talk about these things and then you're saying, men educate boys, are we putting into consideration the fact that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of reorientation about the perspective of who a woman is and who a man is? Because if you're telling a man who believes that, women have a place in society, men have a place to groom the boys, so we would end up having the same men of today as the men of tomorrow. So when you say men train boys, how do we ensure that the boys are getting that training that we want them?
So I can answer this two ways. There are two ways. I mean, there are already men in society who believe that men and women should have a spot in society. So we do not have men being a monolith that say women, there's only one space that women should be in. We don't have that society. We already have men who are there, and then we have women who are pushing for this. And yes, many programs like the ones we have, the ones that most organizations who are trying to promote equality in our country, many things that we do is we work with every stakeholder in the society. That stakeholder might be a religious leader, might be a traditional leader, might be young men and older men, people in society, people with disability, people who do not share the exact idea or cultural upbringings that we have. So yes, we need to include everybody in the work. We need to talk to everybody. Change can only come when we all understand that we need to do it together, which is why I go back to the root point, where I think that if we see each other as human beings first, and regardless of our gender, and that we are equal contributing members to society, that we will begin to move forward from there. So very important for me is seeing more men be in this, and there are a lot of men. I have to give kudos to a lot of men who are working in the field to ensure that more men come up and be accepting of a society where we are equal. And again, I must emphasize, we cannot do it alone. It has to be men, women, young boys, young girls, people with disability, people who do not conform to, societal norms and whatever. All of us together is what will make our society change. And there will always be a group that will say no. There will always be a group that will say, I prefer traditional ways, I prefer that men should be this and women should be this, and that's fine. We don't need to change everybody, but we need to respect everybody.
So, I've just asked this question. How do we begin to balance where people don't get stigmatized when they say their truths, for being sexually abused, even as a guy, as a lady, because that's where another conversation I think we are not trying to have. We're trying to just let everybody just come, you say your thing and you get, but there's that stigmatization that comes with it. How do we move from that part, where people don't get stigmatized, irrespective of the gender that is telling the truth? And how do we, if for example I tell you my truth, how can you keep it to yourself? Most of these things happen where people just let it out. How do we do it?
Okay, so this can be broken down into, I would say, 3 points, where we have your awareness, and you say a lot of organizations are already beginning to push awareness and removing the culture of silence. If you go to maybe the UN page, you go to our pages, you see people saying, it's not a shame, it's not your shame to carry, it's not something that you are wrong if you have been abused. So there is the awareness part where people are actively saying, it is not your shame, it's not your stigma. And there's something that happens when you repeatedly hear something. If I tell you every day, you have an amazing show, you have an amazing show, you have an amazing show, what happens is you come in with a slight pep in your step every time. And that's what we're doing. We're telling people, it's not your shame to carry. First. The second is the advocacy, where a lot of organizations, individuals are reaching out to government agencies who are saying, okay, this is wrong, it is not the victim that is wrong, we will try to make things better. And then we have the response, those who are responding to those who have been abused. And they're also saying, this is not your shame. So there's a reinforced statement that is saying, this is not your shame. It does not mean that people will not feel the shame, because we are conditioned to think that something is wrong if you're abused. Okay. So it's going to take repeated, reinforced statements telling people this stigma is not yours, this stigma is for the abuser. And it takes a lot of work, which is why mental health has come in as the last point of this. That response is not just physical response, it's also psychological response, so that you're consistently getting that reaffirmation that the stigma is not yours to bear. And some days, 10 years down the line, you might still think that the stigma is yours, but you might decide, okay, I feel good today, I feel better today, and tomorrow when it comes, you might feel sad, but then remember, it is not yours to carry. So it's a lifelong work of trying to make sure people understand, no, it's not their fault.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Interesting conversation.
Thank you so much.
Very much. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll go straight into sport and entertainment. We'll be right back.
Advocate and a published author.